What if I told you that the greatest danger in your life isn't failure, heartbreak, or loss? It's trust. The soft, sweet lie you were raised on. The fairy tale they whispered to you, that if you're good, honest, and loyal, people will protect you. But Machiavelli saw through it. He saw that behind every smile is a knife, that behind every promise is a strategy, and that the one who survives is the one who learns never to trust anyone. Not fully, not blindly, not ever, because the moment you trust, you hand over control. And once they have control, they don't need love. They don't need loyalty. They just need your silence. Niccolò Machiavelli wasn't a villain. He was a mirror, held up to the world as it really is, not how we wish it to be. And the truth he showed us is terrifying, but it might be the only thing that can save you. This isn't just philosophy. This is war, not with guns, but with intentions, with manipulation, with control. And in war, trust is a luxury you can't afford. In 1513, Machiavelli was exiled from Florence, stripped of his titles. His allies vanished. His name became poison. He had trusted the wrong people, and the price was everything. So he sat in a dark farmhouse, wearing second-hand clothes, writing one book, The Prince, a manual for power, written by a man who had lost all of his. And inside it, he put one brutal rule: never trust anyone, because those who rise in this world are the ones who understand. Loyalty can be bought, love can be faked, and the one who smiles at you today might be sharpening the blade for tomorrow. You think this doesn't apply to you. You're not a king. You're not a ruler. But you're wrong. You're the ruler of your own life, your own decisions, your own future. And every day, people try to take that crown with soft words, with flattery, with favors that come with invisible strings. Machiavelli saw it in courts, but you see it in boardrooms, in friendships, in relationships. Trust is a currency of control. And once someone knows you trust them, they know how to break you. They know where you're blind, where you won't ask questions, where you'll forgive too quickly. They learn your pattern, then they use it. And by the time you see it, it's too late. He warned us. If you must deceive, deceive with skill. If you must rule, rule without apology. Because a kind, trusting heart, it doesn't survive the game. It gets eaten. You've seen it happen. The loyal employee who gets laid off first. The faithful partner who's betrayed. The childhood friend who turns the second you succeed. And when it happens, you blame yourself. You say, I should have known. But Machiavelli would say, you did know. You just ignored it. Because trusting someone feels good. It feels safe. But safety is a drug. And the more you rely on it, the weaker you get. So he wrote The Prince not to destroy you, but to wake you up. To remind you that power isn't given. It's taken. And the moment you hand it over in trust, you start to disappear. He spoke of men who used charm like a sword, who smiled while they plotted, who kissed a hand while aiming for the throat. He saw how easy it is to be used when you want to believe the best in people, and how rare it is to find someone who sees the world clearly and still survives it. He wrote, men are so simple and so obedient to present necessities that he who deceives will always find someone who will let himself be deceived. That's not just history. That's your life. You've met them. People who said all the right things, who told you they cared, who mirrored your dreams, who waited just long enough for you to let your guard down. And then they took your time, your trust, your heart, and when you look for answers, you told yourself, but they wouldn't do that to me, because you still believed that people are what they appear to be, that intentions are pure, that loyalty is sacred. But Machiavelli, he had no such illusions. He said, it is double pleasure to deceive the deceiver, meaning even the people you think are good might just be better liars. He wasn't telling you to become a monster. He was telling you to stop being a target. Because in a world where everyone's smiling, you have to ask yourself, who taught them to smile like that? And what are they hiding behind it? You don't need to become cruel. You just need to become awake. To question the motive behind every gift. To trace the hand behind every compliment. To remember, a wolf doesn't just growl. Sometimes it purrs. This is not about fear. It's about freedom. Because once you stop trusting blindly, you stop bleeding needlessly. You stop handing weapons to people who claim to love you, but don't know how to hold a blade without using it. They say trust is a foundation of love. But what if that foundation is made of sand? Machiavelli believed that power is cleaner than love, because power doesn't lie to you. Power tells you, you must protect yourself. You must be the observer. You must learn when to nod and when to walk away. Because no matter how many times they say, I'd never hurt you, history proves otherwise. And in the darkest rooms of your memory, you already know that the face that hurt you the most was once the one you trusted the deepest. So now you're left with a choice. Do you keep hoping for honesty in a world of masks? Or do you finally learn how to see through them? That's what Machiavelli asks. Not to destroy love, but to stop mistaking it for a shield. Because in this world, even the kindest soul can be betrayed. Even the purest intention can be weaponized. And even you, right now, could be someone's target. But the next move is yours. And once you see what's really happening, you can never unsee it. There's a reason the rule is supreme. And there's a reason it's feared. Because once you learn to never trust anyone, you become untouchable. They don't come for you with swords. They come with smiles. That's the part no one warns you about. They call you friend. They call you family. They hold your hand while placing the trap beneath your feet. And when you fall, they act surprised. Machiavelli understood this better than anyone. He knew that betrayal doesn't feel like betrayal until it's too late. Because in the moment, it feels like love. It feels like safety. But safety is a story we tell ourselves. To stay asleep. And power? Power never sleeps. It watches. It waits. It listens more than it speaks. He warned, the first method for estimating the intelligence of a ruler is to look at the men he has around him. Not the words they say, but the roles they play. So look around you, not at how they act when you win, but at how they react when you fail. Look at who vanishes, when you have nothing left to give, who gets quiet, when you're no longer useful. They were never with you. They were with your position, your access, your energy. And once that ran dry, so did their loyalty. That's the cold truth. And it's one Machiavelli lived. He served the most powerful men in Italy, kings, dukes, generals, men who smiled to his face, then tossed him aside the moment it suited them. So he wrote The Prince not just to reveal power, but to survive it. He wrote, a wise prince ought not to keep faith, when by doing so would be against his interests. In other words, when survival is at stake, morality takes a back seat. You don't have to like it, but you better understand it. Because while you're waiting for people to do the right thing, they're doing what benefits them. And if you don't learn that fast enough, you become the lesson. You become the one they use to prove they could. Because here's the truth they won't say out loud. Most people don't love you. They love what you do for them. They love how you make them feel. They love your obedience, your softness, your silence. But the moment you say no, watch how fast love turns to blame. How the one who claimed to protect you becomes the one who punishes you. Machiavelli saw it all. He studied men who rose from nothing, not through kindness, but through calculation. They didn't beg for loyalty. They demanded respect. They knew it's better to be feared than loved, when love is conditional, and fear keeps the knife at bay. Now pause. Think of the one person you trust the most. Think of what they know, what secrets you've told them, what weaknesses you've revealed. If that person ever turned, could they destroy you? If the answer is yes, you're already in danger. Because Machiavelli's rule isn't about paranoia. It's about preparation. He didn't say never love. He said never depend. He didn't say never connect. He said never reveal your full hand. Because the second someone knows everything about you, they hold the keys, not to your heart, but to your downfall. You must remain a mystery, even to those closest. Let them know your smile, but not your plan. Let them hear your voice, but not your fears. Because when people don't know your limits, they can't play with them. And when they don't know your pain, they can't weaponize it. This is the path Machiavelli laid out, not for tyrants, but for anyone who wants to stop bleeding for others, who wouldn't shed a tear for them. He saw that the world runs on appearance, not truth, on perception, not purity. And if you don't control the story, someone else will. He wrote, "Everyone sees what you appear to be. Few really know what you are. So guard what you are. Hide what they could use. You don't owe anyone the map to your destruction. And if they ask for it, ask yourself why. Because not everyone who listens is listening to help. Some are gathering intel. Some are studying your patterns so they can copy you, beat you, or bury you. They don't need a reason, only an opportunity. That's what trust gives them. Access. And the truly dangerous ones? They wait. They smile. They play the long game. And when the moment's right, they strike. You think you'll see it coming, but you won't, because they've already made you feel safe. And safety is where your guard drops. That's where power is taken, not stolen, given away. So now you know, Machiavelli wasn't cold. He was clear. He knew that those who survive are those who see the rules for what they are, not what they should be. And the first rule, the one that governs all the rest, never trust anyone, not blindly, not completely, not for free, because the price of misplaced trust is always the same: control, shame, loss. And by the time you realize it, they're already holding the knife. But what if, just once, you held it first? What if instead of trusting their words, you started reading their actions? What if you stopped hoping and started watching? The game is already being played, and silence is not safety. It's surrender. You want to win? Then learn what they never taught you. Power doesn't beg. It doesn't weep. It doesn't trust. It calculates. And when it speaks, the world listens, because it doesn't need to scream. It already knows the ending. But we're not there yet, because in the next chapter, you'll learn what happens when you finally stop trusting and start taking control. And that's when everything changes. They say knowledge is power, but they forget to mention knowledge without control is just danger. Because once you know the truth about people, once you see how they use trust as a weapon, you can't go back. You start noticing the little things, the delay before a compliment, the silence after favor, the way they remember your weakness, but forget your strength. It all used to seem harmless. Now it feels like a map, a path leading to exactly where they want you. Obedient, distracted, predictable. And that's when the game really begins. Machiavelli said, "The promise given was a necessity of the past. The word broken is a necessity of the present." That's how power moves. Not with guilt, but with precision. When you stop trusting, you start observing. You begin to study people the way they've studied you. You stop reacting and start noticing. They expect you to be naive, to keep forgiving, to keep explaining yourself, to hand them your truth like it's candy. But you've changed. You now understand. Trust is not a gift. It's a currency. And if you keep giving it away, you go broke. So you get quiet, still, sharp. You become unpredictable. And that terrifies them. Because the one thing manipulators can't handle is someone they can't read. Someone who doesn't flinch, doesn't explain, doesn't open the door just because they knocked. That's what Machiavelli meant when he said it's better to be feared than loved. Not cruel, but unreadable, unshakable. Because love fades, fear remembers. You begin to play the game, not with malice, but with mastery. When they lie, you pretend to believe them. When they flatter, you smile, but never swallow it whole. You nod, but you don't follow. You listen, but you don't absorb. You let them reveal themselves. Because now you don't chase truth. You invite it. You give them space to act. And they always do, because people always expose themselves if you give them time. Machiavelli knew that. He watched men unravel just by letting them think. They had the upper hand. It's not about confrontation. It's about clarity. You don't need revenge. You just need to see them clearly and act accordingly. No more blind faith. No more benefit of the doubt. Just pattern recognition. Just precision. Just power. You stop expecting them to be loyal, and you stop punishing yourself when they're not, because you finally understand they were never loyal to you. They were loyal to their need for you. And once that need changed, so did their loyalty. It was never about you. It was about access, advantage, opportunity. And now, you've shut the gate. That's when they panic. Not when you yell, not when you cry, but when you go quiet. Because silence means they can't track you. And untrackable people are dangerous. You become a thing they can't control. And control was all they ever wanted. So they'll come back. They always do. With new masks, softer words, empty apologies. They'll say, "You've changed." Yes, you have. You've stopped trusting what they say and started trusting what you see. You stopped explaining your value and started moving in it. And when that happens, you become untouchable. Not because you're mean, not because you're cold, but because you finally see the game and refuse to be a piece on their board. This is the power Machiavelli spoke of, not dominance over others, but mastery over yourself. To know your limits and protect them. To know your value and stop offering it to those who only want to consume it. To know who you are without needing anyone confirm it. That's real power. Not loud, not flashy, but still precise, unshakable. Because once you stop trusting blindly, you stop bleeding for people who would never even bandage your wounds. You begin to conserve your energy for what truly matters. Strategy, focus, self-respect. You realize you don't need to warn anyone. You don't need to prove anything. You just adjust, quietly, completely. And when they notice the shift, they won't understand it. Because the old you, the trusting, soft, always available version, no longer lives here. You buried that person the day you realized they were only keeping you small. Machiavelli would nod, not in celebration, but in recognition. Because now you are no longer waiting to be protected. You are the protector, not of everyone, just of the one who matters most. You. But this is not the end. Because there's one final move, one last rule, that turns everything you've learned into true dominance. A principle so subtle, most never see it coming. But once you do, you'll never be controlled again. And that's what we'll uncover next. You've made it this far. You've seen the mask behind the smile, the blade behind the favor. You stopped trusting blindly. You watched. You waited. You learned. But there's one lesson left. One truth, even Machiavelli buried beneath layers of strategy. The most dangerous person in any room is not the one with power over others. It's the one who no longer needs anything from them. That's the final stage. Detachment. Because control doesn't begin with strength. It begins with no longer needing permission. When you no longer need to be understood, you stop explaining. When you no longer need to be liked, you stop bending. When you no longer need approval, you stop performing. And that's when people feel your presence the most. When they realize they can't move you, that's when the power shifts. Machiavelli wrote for kings and princes, but his words were meant for anyone, ready to become sovereign over themselves. He didn't just teach deception, he taught resilience, how to endure exile, how to rebuild in silence, how to stop asking and start becoming. And that's where you are now, not bitter, but awake. You stopped trying to prove your worth to those who only came to extract from it. You've stopped handing over the map to your inner world. You've stopped bleeding for people who always walked away clean. Because the most powerful thing you can ever do is walk into a room, fully aware of who you are and needing nothing from anyone inside it. That's the energy they can't predict. That's the presence they can't play. It's not anger. It's not revenge. It's not cruelty. It's silence with depth, stillness with weight. It's a storm that never needs to raise its voice. Because when you carry power within, you don't have to chase it outside. Machiavelli understood that control wasn't about violence. It was about clarity, about choosing who gets access, and who never even gets close. That's what they never taught you. That you don't have to be mean to be dangerous. You just have to stop being available. You just have to stop giving yourself away. To those who only remember your name, when they need something, and when they come back, and they'll find someone they can't reach. Not because you blocked them, but because you rose above them. Not out of ego, but out of necessity. Because you finally understand, not everyone deserves the truth of who you are. Not everyone deserves your light. Your loyalty is sacred. Your energy is sacred. Your silence is sacred. And from this moment on, you choose where it goes, who sees it, who feels it. Because the supreme rule of power was never trust anyone. That was just the beginning. The real rule is this: own yourself so completely that no one else ever can. No matter what they offer, no matter what they promise, no matter how sweet their mask may be, you stay centered, grounded, untouched, and they'll feel it long before you ever speak. Because real power doesn't have to prove itself. It just is. So now, you walk differently. You choose differently. You move through this world with your eyes open, your heart guarded, and your soul intact. No more begging. No more explaining. No more bleeding. You are no longer the one waiting to be chosen. You are the one doing the choosing. And that is the most Machiavellian move of all. Because when you become the person no one can control, you become the one everyone remembers. Silently, powerfully, permanently.